The 2026 NHL playoffs are here. All 8 matchups are finally set, and it is go time. But we got to know what the hell is going on, who's got the advantage, and what to expect. So here is everything you need to know going into the 2026 NHL playoffs. Let's start with the LA Kings versus the Colorado Avalanche. Finally, after 4 straight years, we can congratulate the LA Kings for making it to the playoffs and not having to play Edmonton in round 1. Their reward is now playing the Colorado Avalanche. Now, this Kings team may indeed be one of the worst statistical teams in NHL history to make the playoffs. They qualified at the time with a -19 goal differential and just 22 regulation wins. They rank 30th in the league for regulation wins. 30th! Come on, Gary. What are we doing here? They set a record for overtime and shootout appearances this season, but luckily for them, there is no 3-on-3 or skills competition in the playoffs, and that's good because the Kings are actually a decent team when 5-on-5, ranking 12th in overall goal differential, and their biggest strength is indeed defending all around. They're solid, ranking in 3rd in 5-on-5 goals against, and they allow the least high danger shots in the NHL with just 113. The Kings play a box +1, and they're really good at protecting the middle of the ice at all costs. Watch here as they temporarily get beat to the inside by McDavid, but then Doughty steps right up in his face and blocks a high-quality shot. When their structure is strong enough, they're able to force offensive teams to find high ice in order to get that shot. And here LA takes away the most dangerous part of the ice, which forces Stamkos to have to shift higher in the zone. Even then, LA comes out to front it and blocks the chance. Of course, the knock on them the last few years is that when they played Edmonton, that they would just go into a shell and try to hang on for dear life to win games. Sitting back and trying to trap their way to a series win hasn't worked in previous years. But if they want to pull off an upset, they're going to have to defend almost perfectly, which is obvious, but they're also going to have to find a way to get timely scoring. That being said, the Avs are a whole new animal. There may not be more pressure on any other team going into these playoffs than the Colorado Avalanche to at least have some success. Anytime you win the President Trophy, all eyes and expectations are on that team to go all the way. As of late, the trophy has become more of a curse than an accomplishment, mostly because regular season hockey is vastly different than playoff hockey. But Colorado should be hungry because last year they were eliminated in 7 games by the Mikko Rantanen Revenge Tour. A Game 7 defeat sent them to Turks and Caicos way earlier than they expected. They came out of the gate this season and made history, becoming only the 4th team ever to record a regulation loss or fewer in their first 20 games. But the second half of the season, they started to come down to earth a little bit. It's simple. The Avs game is all speed, speed, speed. Built off of the players like Makar, McKinnon, and Natchez, there is a level of pace that teams simply can't match, and one that LA will try and suffocate in the neutral zone. Because all 4 lines can play with such pace, it'll likely be unrelenting pressure coming at LA for 60 minutes or more. Where there's a tiny glimmer of doubt, though, is goaltending. The tandem of Blackwood and Wedgwood means there's a whole lot of wood in net for Colorado, but anytime you have this 1A, 1B situation in the crease, there's always some concern as to who's going to take the horns. It worked well in the regular season, but the idea is that at some point in this run, they're going to need one of them to steal them a game or 2. If they can do that and stop the ones that they should, Colorado can go all the way. We've seen some absurd upsets against better teams in round 1, but I don't think we see it here. So for my totally wrong pick, we're going with the Avs in 5. Next up is the Utah Mammoth versus the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, this matchup is probably going to be a lot closer than people think. Vegas is coming in with the Torts bump. They're 7-0-1 since hiring him, meaning that they're coming in hot. Now, you could argue that the only real teams that they played in that span were the Oilers and Avs, but you still got to win your games, and they have. Torts has made it a point to say that he's less focused on changing the X's and O's of Vegas and more so focused on bringing more energy, communication, and emotion to the Golden Knights game. That's great, but in a 7-game series, these little tactical adjustments are what win and lose you matchups. So at some point, Torts will have to communicate those adjustments, and then we'll see how Vegas responds or adapts. Vegas, like LA, actually defends pretty well too. They're 12th in overall goals against, but 2nd in shots allowed. An area of their game which they've actually cleaned up under Torts as of late is actually their rush defense. They're just a bit more organized in understanding their assignments, and it has helped them close off tougher situations for their goaltending, which has been shaky all throughout the year. That detail right there is going to be huge in a series against the Utah Mammoth, who are a drastically different team stylistically than Vegas. Utah is one of the fastest teams in the league as they rank top 5 in all speed categories across the board. Naturally, because of their speed, they have some of the best rush offense in the NHL, and they will look to use their counterattack to expose a slower and more experienced Vegas squad. However, with playoff hockey, rush chances do dry up and become more rare. So look for Utah to try and expose Vegas, specifically high in the O-zone when they have possession. Against teams that play a box +1 like Vegas in their own end, they can exploit the seam between the center and wingers, whether it's using a high forward to invite Vegas to flex out or coming out of the corner from a low to high play. Once they find that seam, they can change sides and force the whole defensive structure to have to shift, and that is when they can take full advantage. With how Utah moves the puck high in the O-zone, look for them to leverage these high 2-on-1s to create open space while manufacturing a threat on the backdoor option. They do also defend pretty well, being ranked 7th in the NHL in goals against, but I am curious to see how they adapt their game to a more playoff style of hockey. If the offense really dries up for them, can they switch to another gear to find a way to beat their opponent in a different way? I think this one is going to go the distance in 7, and for my totally wrong pick, I'm going to go with the Utah Mammoth to upset Vegas. Next is the Minnesota Wild versus the Dallas Stars. These teams have known they're going to meet each other for quite some time now. With the NHL playoff format, there's usually a conference final caliber matchup in round 1, and this is it. Minnesota swung for the fences this year, picking up Quinn Hughes, who is arguably one of, if not the best defenseman in the world on any given night. Of course, there is worry up the ice for Minnesota, as you could argue. They don't truly have the center depth to go all the way. Dallas, on the other hand, though, they've been there every year. Conference final the last 2 years, only to fall short to the Oilers. The Stars, when healthy, may have one of the best forward groups in the world, and because these teams are so even, it is probably going to come down to a few tactical components that will decide the series. If Dallas wants to win this series, slowing up Quinn Hughes in the neutral zone is going to be essential. Here's something for you. Minnesota led the league in stretch passes before Hughes got there. Then he got there and came in and took their transition game to another level with the poise to read neutral zone forechecks, attack on poor line changes, and activate on the weak side to give the Wild a breakout option in a pinch. Hughes and the Wild can really make the Stars pay if they get caught being too aggressive up ice. However, if Dallas's forecheck are able to seal the walls and force Hughes to defend, then it's no bueno for Minnesota. Now, if Dallas wants to win this series, special teams is going to be huge. Now, in terms of the numbers, there isn't much of a difference between the power play and penalty kill between these two teams. But Dallas and how they execute their game plan on the power play can expose the way the Wild play their diamond PK. The Wild PK has struggled for a few years now. They play a diamond that gets in trouble if it drifts too high up in the zone in an attempt to be aggressive and take away space. This leaves them very vulnerable to a down low and a cross play, especially against the 1-3-1 formation. That's because by the time the puck goes down low, the down low and a cross play or goal line to bumper feed is just too hard to defend if they're caught too high after a pass to the goal line. This is something that the Dallas Stars have done incredibly well this season and in the past few seasons. Because the margins are so damn close in this type of series, I do think it comes down to special teams and goaltending, which is why in my completely wrong picks, I'm going with the Dallas Stars in 7. Then we have the Anaheim Ducks versus the Edmonton Oilers. Let's be honest. This series will be a complete shootout, just a gunslingers matchup right here. Neither team defends very well, but the Ducks defend worse. Now, Anaheim are one of the bigger surprises this season, bringing in Joel Quenneville for this young team. He's given his youngest players the freedom to fly for better or for worse. The Ducks have a high-flying offense, but it does come at a cost for them defensively. They're bottom 5 in terms of goals allowed, and they are the very definition of run and gun. This is what the Ducks game looks like at its best. Tons of speed and skill mixed with an east-west attack to use the full width of the ice to gain an offensive advantage. They frequently have their Ds activating on the weak side to give them numbers up ice, and so when they use delays or speed changes on one side, it opens up the other to create a dangerous chance. The same goes for them in the O-zone too. They like having their D get off the line, create offense, but sometimes it can come back to bite them. And against Edmonton, it will bite them at times. These are all just part of the growing pains of having a young team that at times can get caught thinking offense first. In the playoffs, that won't fly if they want to find a way to win a round or multiple. They did stumble into the playoffs too this season with a tough stretch near the end, but thankfully they're in the Pacific, so if you're going to be bad and make the playoffs, that's the division to do it in. As for the Oilers, the narrative around Edmonton is that the time is ticking in McDavid's window. Connor McDavid and his legacy is on the line here with every shot he gets at a Stanley Cup. The biggest concern or X factor, though, is the health of Leon Draisaitl. He is supposed to be healthy enough to compete in these playoffs, but we don't truly know if he's 100%. Then again, both of these guys are so damn good that even if they're not at 100%, they're still the best players on the ice. Going into these playoffs, they have the best power play in the league. It has been their nuclear weapon in the last few postseason runs, and it will need to be just as good again if they want to go back to the Cup final. Depth is a concern too with Edmonton. We outlined it in one of our latest videos on the Oilers, but even the advanced numbers indicate that the Oilers' depth just isn't as versatile as its previous versions. They've also had difficulties all year defending when 5-on-5, and another goalie rodeo in the net means it is hard to expect which Oilers team we're going to see this year in the playoffs. One thing is for sure, no matter what, I expect McDavid and Draisaitl to do whatever they can to put this team on their back. Whether it's enough is something we're all going to find out. The one thing I think should scare Oilers fans is Lucas Dostal in the crease for Anaheim. He's got that ability to just turn into a cyborg and potentially steal a series. I do think Edmonton, though, and their experience find a way to move on in 6 games. Now, before we get into the East, with the NHL playoffs being here, it is the very best time to catch a game live and in person, and you can do it with a great deal using SeatGeek. SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app with over 28 million downloads. There's more than 70,000 listed events from sports, concerts to festivals and more. It's a World Cup year, and SeatGeek already has tickets available on the app. It's really simple to use. You browse seating on a scale of 1 to 10, look for the green, which indicates the best deals, and voila, you got yourself a great deal on some tickets. I can't be using it for Leaf games now, but I do use it for other live events, and you can do the same by using code HOCKEY2026 to get 10% off your next pair of tickets. Just hit the link in the description to download the app, and it'll automatically apply the code to your account so you're ready the next time you find a deal. So make sure you download the app so that you can get a fantastic deal on your next live event through SeatGeek. So now moving on to the East, we have the Ottawa Senators versus the Carolina Hurricanes. Now the Hurricanes are a cup contender every year, and every year they have fallen short in the conference final thanks to their boogeyman in the Florida Panthers. This year there are no Panthers, and the path to the cup through the Metro once again looks easier than through the Atlantic. Carolina, more than any other team, dictates the flow of the game. No one spends more time in the O zone and less time in the D zone in the entire league than the Hurricanes. They put you on your heels right from puck drop and like to keep you there. But the interesting thing about Carolina is that they've adjusted their game to be more possession-oriented on entries. Last year and in previous years, they led the league in dump-ins and preferred to start their offense on the forecheck. This season, however, they are leaning into their skill to be a bit more dynamic offensively. Defensively, their strict man-on-man system leaves very little room for teams to breathe, but it is beatable. Watch here as Boston is able to temporarily shake the man-on-man coverage of Carolina. The Hurricanes then have to sort out their checks quickly as Boston makes their way down the zone. And as McAvoy here beats his checker in the one-on-one situation, that leaves Aho forced to vacate his check in front of the net to pressure the puck carrier. This is the biggest downside of man-on-man coverage. If one guy is beat, another has to fill his spot to cover, leaving the opportunity for a man to be wide open. It is rare to put Carolina in these spots, but this is the way to beat them with sustained pressure. The other will be taking advantage of their willingness to create off the rush. Because they're now opting to hold on to more pucks, a turnover at the blue line leaves Carolina exposed for rush chances against. And it is something that is happening to them more frequently than in years past. Goaltending has always been problematic for Carolina in the playoffs too, and neither goalie in Brandon Bussey or Mr. Anderson has over a .900 save percentage this season, despite the Hurricanes allowing the fewest shots against in the league. So that brings us to Ottawa. As for the Senators, I can't believe they actually did it. There was a lot of noise around this team. First, they couldn't get a damn save at the beginning of the season, which put them behind the 8 ball all year. Then there was all the off-ice noise surrounding Linus Ullmark and Brady Tkachuk after the Olympics, and still, this team has come together to find a way to go on a run despite being hurt down the stretch as well. The story all year for them has been if they can just get goaltending, they're one of the best teams in the league, and the numbers support it too. The worst news for Carolina and even the other teams is that even going back to last year, they play a very similar style to the Florida Panthers. Ottawa's offensive game is built off of a shoot and retrieve style that relies heavily on winning 50-50 pucks and shrinking the offensive zone to win the numbers battle and then go low to high to funnel pucks on net. Florida mastered it, and now Ottawa is pretty damn good at it as well. It is relatively a simple way of playing, but when you have the buy-in with the talent of making small area plays like Ottawa, it is suffocating to play against. Of course, the last thing Carolina wants to see is anything that resembles Panthers hockey. Yet this series is pretty much a toss-up when it comes to goaltending in general, because what type of goaltending shows up for the Sens? Do they get the Vezina-winning Linus Ullmark, or are they going to have to pivot and go to good old James Reimer? If they do get the goaltending and somehow Linus Ullmark dials in, I'm picking them to upset in round one, and if they don't, well, Ottawa can enjoy Cancun. Next is the Boston Bruins versus the Buffalo Sabres. Now, the Bruins, after taking a year off, have come back and clawed their way back to a playoff spot, despite not having a roster that wows pretty much anybody. Aside from David Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy, and Jeremy Swayman, Boston has a roster that understands its role, the structure they need to play with, and committing to buying in on the execution. Their strength is in their 5-on-5 play, which is good for the playoffs. They're one of the better teams in the league in 5v5 goal differential. They are 6th in the NHL, while Buffalo is 3rd, and the Bruins play a relatively passive 1-2-2 forecheck that wants to have 4 players above the puck to prevent odd man rushes. Against a team like Buffalo, staying patient when the Sabres look to attack with numbers on the rush is going to be imperative to forcing them into making mistakes. Offensively, despite their roster being somewhat average in terms of skill, Boston still leans into prioritizing possession in the O-zone and using motion to create openings. However, they are very effective when going low to high and putting pucks on net. They are a top 5 team in terms of goals scored around the crease. So that's an area that Buffalo and their defensemen is going to have to pay real close attention to in order to box out and make sure their goalie can see pucks. Now, perhaps the most important component to Boston's success is Jeremy Swayman. He can flat out steal a series. He has refound his form this year, and if he gets hot, well, flip a coin and see what happens. As for the Sabres, it has been 15 long years since they've been in the playoffs. The city of Buffalo may not be sober for a week and a half, and maybe even longer if they get past the first round. And if they play their game, there's a good chance that's the case. I don't think there's any team in the league that infuses their defensemen with their offense as well as Buffalo. In the O-zone, it's like a beautiful symphony watching these guys cook. All 5 players are in motion. Each guy is filling in the space the previous guy left to provide constant options, and when executed properly, it is a nightmare to defend. They're actually a better team defensively, too, than people give them credit for. They've done a better job at limiting high-danger chances through an overall better neutral zone structure and improved play in the D-zone. Now, if you can guess what the biggest question mark is, yep, it's in the crease, ladies and gentlemen. Whether it's UPL same-day delivery or Alex Lyon, both can win games for the Buffalo Sabres, but one of them will need to take over the bus if they have a deep run. They are young and inexperienced in playoff hockey, but they are damn good, and just seeing them back in the dance is fantastic. They do have more talent than Boston, and I think if they want to get past them, one or multiple of their stars have to hit another gear here. Whether it's Dahlin or Thompson or someone else, their overall depth will be an advantage in this series. That's why for this one, I'm going with the Buffalo Sabres for my totally wrong pick. Let's keep the show rolling in Buffalo because it's been too damn long. Now, next is the Philadelphia Flyers versus the Pittsburgh Penguins. Damn it, it is going to be electric watching the Battle of Pennsylvania get going again. There's going to be a lot of natural hate in this series, not only because of the history, but also because these two teams are hungry to prove everyone wrong. Neither were supposed to be here, and yet, here they are. For the first time since 2020, the Flyers are back in the playoffs, and since the Olympic break, this team has found another level under Rick Tocchet. The Flyers' offseason additions of Trevor Zegras, Christian Dvorak, and Dan Vladar were absolute money. They've all had their best season of their careers. Dan the Darth Vladar being the MVP and helping Philly get consistent goaltending for once in their franchise has been huge. But I do want to focus on one player in particular who can make himself an absolute star in a greasy series like this, and that is the rookie Porter Martone. Anytime a player comparable resembles a Tkachuk, there's reason for intrigue. Martone has come in late after the NCAA season ended. He's got 10 points in 9 games, but he's changed the dynamic of the Flyers in more ways than just one. First, the kid loves to shoot the pill, and not only can he fire it, but at just 19, he showed early on that he can find the soft spots in defensive coverages to use his deadly release. And what I love too is how eager he is to get the puck and want to shoot it. At 6'3", 214 pounds, he can be a physical net front presence, and more importantly, he's got that Philly you to his game. But where I think he's the most important immediately is on the power play. Philly's power play has been dreadful all year, being dead last, but Martone coming in has given them a new dynamic in terms of playmaking around the net. Whether he's in the bumper or on the goal line, Martone's physicality and skill is welcomed on the top unit. He also helps immensely with entries too. He can move pretty well for a big boy, and when him and a guy like Zegras can come in with a ton of speed and isolate a defender 2v1 on an entry, it gives them an opportunity to strike quickly before the killers can get set. It is a lot to ask of a rookie to step in and make an immediate impact, but in a series like this, Martone could quickly make a name for himself in Philly. Now, as for the Pittsburgh Penguins, Sid the middle-aged man is finally back in the playoffs, and we know one thing: he does not like the Philadelphia Flyers.
I don't like them.
Why don't you like them?
Because I don't like them. I don't like any guy on their team.
Just in case you didn't know, the Penguins were supposed to stink this year. Everyone thought that Kyle Dubas was a nerd who hired another nerd to be the coach to help reshape the rebuild, but everyone couldn't be more wrong. Coach Dan Hughes has come in and completely reinvigorated this Penguins team. Some unreal offseason and in-season additions has surrounded this core with some solid depth. Combine that with a more aggressive approach with how Pittsburgh wants to attack the game, a guy like Erik Karlsson has refound his form. The Penguins are really good this year on the forecheck too, because they want their defense shorting the zone and limiting the space that teams have to break out. That allows the Pittsburgh forwards to thrive in the trenches below, which just so happens to be the exact area that Sidney Crosby has been dismantling teams for years. He has owned Philly his entire career, 32 points in 22 career playoff games against them. They hate his guts in Philly, and he loves it. This is going to be a bloodbath, and I cannot wait. I love the way Philly has come together the last few weeks of the season, but I am going to go with the Penguins in this series to move on, as I just can't bet against Sid the middle-aged man facing Philly in what could be his final run. I think he's going to be on demon time. Then we have the Tampa Bay Lightning versus the Montreal Canadiens. Now, the Lightning are always a threat to win a Stanley Cup. The last few years, though, have been royally disappointing by their standards. 3 straight first-round exits, 2 in a row at the hands of their bitter rival in the Florida Panthers, and that alone has left a sour taste in their mouth. Now, the only team better than the Tampa Bay Lightning when 5-on-5 this season is the Colorado Avalanche, and a big part of it is Nikita Kucherov. Let's call it for what it is. Kucherov is an Avengers-level threat in the same way that Connor McDavid is. Except in the past couple postseasons, he's been relatively shut down, so this is a big one for him. Team-wide, though, outside of their great offense, their biggest strength is their play in the neutral zone. Usually dependent on the other team, they either run a 1-2-2 or 1-1-3 depending on the game situation to gap up and create turnovers. Their execution is usually top-notch, and that is key when feeding into their rush game. As a 5-man unit, they're very structured in holding each line and then turning up ice for a quick chance. And really, the neutral zone in this series is going to be where it's won and lost. Because when you look at the Montreal Canadiens, there is a lot to love about this team. They maybe have the best first line in the league in Slavkovsky, Caulfield, and Suzuki. Being the perfect blend of size, skill, and smarts means that they can play any style of game. But where their concerns for Montreal is their neutral zone defense. We've talked about this throughout the year, but the Habs and their D-core are just not very good at all at denying entries. The best at it at this skill on their blue line is Noah Dobson, which is not good news as he'll likely be out for the first half of the first round. So with the tendency to concede the blue line quite often, it can open the door for Tampa to absolutely torch them on the rush, and I'm sure Kucherov is waiting to feast on that. Then you have the goaltending. Obviously, the edge here goes to the Tampa Bay Lightning and Andrei Vasilevsky. Probably the Vezina winner this season and one of the few goalies who's proved that he can truly steal a series. If he gets hot, it's pretty much curtains. Now for Montreal, the young tandem of Jakub Dobeš and Jacob Fowler will be tested. But sometimes the youth and sheer ignorance of the pressure surrounding the moment can work out to their benefit. The tandem has also been playing really well down the stretch, and I think they'll surprise a lot of people with their performance in this series. The Habs and their young talent will push Tampa to their limits, but when it comes to overall 5-on-5 play and goaltending, as well as defense, I just think Tampa is too strong and finds a way to move past them to go to the second round. So who do you have in the first round? Who are your sleepers? Who are your favorites? Drop your predictions down below. As always, we are going to have tons of breakdowns throughout the playoffs, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so that you don't miss a single thing when the playoffs get started.